Hello again! I usually try not to record videos at night anymore because I've noticed that when I do, my video looks like, let's be honest here, crap. But I'm just too excited right now not to talk about Final Fantasy. The original Final Fantasy. I can't not talk about it right now. Because, to be honest, even though I played it before, it really surprised me. Um, Again, as I said before, I didn't get into Final Fantasy until I was about to start high school, the turn of this century. So even though I grew up on NES games, I never played any RPGs on the NES era, and I've always been of the mind that RPGs are too complex of a game for the most part to really be on the NES or 8-bit hardware because there's just so much text that needs to be on screen that it simply was not possible, really. I mean, let me illustrate, for example. Let's say you go into a town in an RPG and you have to go buy a bunch of weapons and armor. Well, in most games you would go there and they'd have, your characters lined up, and when you hovered over an item or a weapon, it would tell you exactly what your character's current strength is and how this new weapon would affect it. It would tell you if it goes up or it goes down, and you buy it, and it would automatically say, hey, you want to equip this? Yeah, sure. Well, when you go and buy weapons or armor in the original Final Fantasy, it doesn't tell you any of that. There's just a weapon and a price. You have no idea when you buy it who can equip it, if it's better or worse than what you've already bought. The only way you can tell is to buy the item and try to equip it on somebody. If it lets you equip it on somebody, you go to your status screen and see if it's affected in any way, because you have to already know what your status was beforehand and how it affects it afterwards. The only way to know the difference ahead of time is to break out this wonderful little flowchart. It has a list of every weapon, every armor, and it tells you on there who can equip it, what its strength is, what its hit percentage is. On armor, what its evasion is, what its defense is. You have to go through here and go, let's see, I got a fighter right here. Can he equip this? Yeah, sure, he can do that. Is it better than... And you do this every single time. There is simply not enough capacity in the game itself to tell you, so you have to provide supplemental material. So I've always been of the mind that RPGs are a bit beyond the capabilities of an 8-bit system. And as I said in my last video, I'm a fan of the Mother series, the Earthbound series, and I do usually about once a year play through the entire trilogy, including the original game. And I always hear people whining about how difficult that game is. Oh, it's so hard, there's so many random encounters, and I just can't figure out what to do. And I always say, the first Mother game is a pretty simple RPG. You want to try a hard RPG, play Final Fantasy. And that's always been my defense against that. You really want to get into something that's really knock you down on your face, steal your money and spit on your grave. That's the original Final Fantasy. And I only ever played it once. I'd only ever played it through once before now. Again, this is around that time when I first got into Final Fantasy. Me and my friend Kelly, we played and loved 8, played and loved 7. I think I'd already gotten 4 by this point. There was a neighbor of mine. His name was Brendan, or Brandon, or something like that. And he owned the original Final Fantasy, and he let me borrow it for a little bit. And Kelly and I would sit around the TV and play this game. And I remember being really amused at how the spell effects worked. That there'd be all this cool animation over on the player's side, the colorful, all this stuff, and then it goes over to the enemy side. It's like that always amused us to no end. But we played through a little bit. We had to give it back after not too long. It wasn't until I was, again, a freshman in college, I think it was right after my most recent playthrough of Final Fantasy IV, that I got on eBay and I purchased a used copy of Final Fantasy. And I made sure that I didn't just get one with the cartridge. I made sure that I got one that had the box and everything that came with it, the instruction manual and the charts, the maps, all that stuff. because, like I said, I knew that I would need this stuff to actually play the game. Kind of. I mean, I know nowadays you can look up all this stuff on the internet, but I really wanted to have all the stuff that came with it, pretty much be put on the same level as people who played it back in the day. And I managed to play through the entire game, and I beat it. I never wanted to pick it up after that. And I'm not really sure why now. I guess I was, maybe I've gotten better at gaming since then, or I just, my memories of it has sort of confirmed itself to what other people seem to think. But I played through this game just now, and again, I just want you to I want to be clear here. NES game. Cartridge in the NES. I did not emulate this. I didn't use any cheat codes or save states. I played through the game exactly the way it was back then. I had 15 hours of overtime at work this week, and I still managed to beat this game in 2 weeks. With the limited amount of free time I had, I still beat this game in 2 weeks. And I gotta tell you, it really wasn't that hard. And this isn't me just bragging and saying, oh, what a great, wonderful gamer I am. It surprised me. I didn't think that I was scared. I was scared to play this game. I was not planning on going back and playing this after 4. This was not my original plan until I started getting this idea to do a video series about this. And I was terrified to go back into this game because I remembered it being so hard when I played it the first time. I really just it's been sitting collecting dust for the past 8 years as more of a collector's item. Like, ooh, I got Final Fantasy, the original one. But it was a lot of fun. And it really wasn't that hard. And people are always saying that the original Final Fantasy is just, it's so difficult, it's so hard, so tedious, so broken. And it's really not that bad. It really isn't. It really didn't seem that much harder to me than the first Mother game, which I play, like I said, pretty much once a year. And that's why I'm so excited to talk about this, because and this game has been re-released many times on the PlayStation, on the Wonder Swan Color before that, Game Boy Advance. I have the Dawn of Souls version. I got it. I think I got it around the time that I ordered this on eBay. I got it for Christmas that year, and I really. That might have been the reason I ordered this game. I bought this off eBay in the first place, was because I'd gotten the remake, and I didn't want to play the remake before I played the original version, because I didn't want that to be my first exposure to it. I wanted to see how it was originally. And so as soon as I finished this version of the game, I went back and played the Dawn of Souls version, and it was just ridiculously easy. They took all the challenge out of it, and it wasn't still fun, but it was sort of like playing basically a watered down Final Fantasy IV. Final Fantasy IV's mechanics, basically, without any of the difficulty or the story or the characters. It was just basic turn-based RPG. Some of the things people complain about, for example, the magic system. Actually, let me start over again. There are a lot of things about this game, about this version of the game, that are truly broken. And I learned a lot about this game while playing the game, because I found a Let's Player, H.C. Bailey, I'd never heard of before. But I was looking up some Let's Plays. I was playing Final Fantasy IV, and I got into his stuff, and so I actually watched his Let's Play of Final Fantasy as I was playing along with this. That is, I would play a section, and then I would go back and watch his Let's Play of it to see if he did anything differently, or if I did something wrong, or something that they could have been more intelligently prepared, and it caused me to learn a lot about this game. And I learned that there are a lot of things that are truly broken and glitched and don't work in this version of the game. Like, for example, the intelligence statistic doesn't work at all. That's the stat that governs magic use. And so, basically, you would expect in an RPG for your characters to learn a magic spell, and it's, the spell is basically has its level of effectiveness, but as your character got stronger, their ability to use that spell would increase. So that you still might not use a level 1 cure spell late in the game, but it would still do a lot more at the end of the game than it would at the beginning, because your character's ability to use magic has gotten better. That doesn't work in this version of the game. Intelligence stat means nothing. It doesn't affect magic at all, so your level 1 cure spell will still do the same 20 points of healing that it did at the beginning of the game. Elemental weapons don't do anything. So you get your flame sword or your ice sword or whatever, and all that matters is base attack statistic. It doesn't affect anything on an elemental level. Which I admit didn't really bother me that much because it made things a little less complicated, really. I get that. You know, that cool new sword, like, it only does 18, its attack's only 18, well, the sword I got now is much better than that, so throw it away. Other things might be considered outdated, but I wouldn't call it a glitch or a problem. Like, even things like ineffective attacks. If you've never played this game before, and it's the same way in the first Mother game as well. Say you have two of your party members target the same enemy. The first one kills that enemy, the second one still attempts to target the same enemy, doesn't do anything. Like, in later games, it would auto-target so that if the first person killed an enemy, the second person would automatically retarget something else. It doesn't do that in this game. It just says ineffective, and you waste your turn. And people always complain about that. I don't know if that's a glitch or not, because it does seem to be in a lot of games of that era. But Final Fantasy III, for example, I did look this up and find this out. Final Fantasy III actually did change that so that physical attacks would auto-target, but magic spells wouldn't. And because of that, because they purposely chose one and not the other, makes it seem to me like that was actually on purpose and not just a glitch. But and later ports and remakes have either had the option be toggle, you can toggle it on or off, or it just does away with it entirely, auto targets everything. But in a way that doesn't really bother me. That maybe I'm just used to it from playing Mother so much. But to be honest, it makes me think about battles more. A lot of times in later Final Fantasies, when I get into random encounters, I'll just mash away at the attack button and not even really pay attention because I know that eventually, they'll all be dead. But I really have to, I have to know about how much damage each character will do and sort of assign tasks, and I really feel like I'm more involved. Like I was like, almost like giving orders out to troops. That you guys, you take care of that guy, you take care of that guy, you take care of that guy. And the two of you can team up on this guy, and we'll take him out. And it's not like it doesn't make sense from a narrative standpoint either. It seems kind of silly, It's like, why would he still attack that guy if the guy's not there anymore? But I can imagine something like like for example in a Star Fox game, if you're targeting this enemy, and all of a sudden Slippy, that dumbass Slippy, comes in and takes out the enemy for you. Well, then you've wasted all that time going after this guy that's not there anymore when you could have gone after this guy, but you can't because you didn't know that was going to happen.